Okay, so I think we'll get kicked off. So yeah, again, thank you everyone for joining. So obviously we've had some new products that have been announced recently, and we're going to do a deep dive into Huddle Spaces. So obviously when we actually announced and published that we're going to be doing this talk, Techie to me, it was actually before we'd announced that Huddle, our Rally by Huddle was going to be a product that was launched. So we thought timing would be pretty close and pretty good. So we thought we'd get things all covered off with the Huddle space, which is usually the most common space and where most organizations are going to have the most number of those type of spaces. So our agenda today, so we're going to talk about, as we do with most of our Talk Techie themes, the latest COLLABOS updates, sync, and then our product update. Then we're going to go through our Huddle introduction, a bit of a switch around actually with the agenda there I've just picked up. And then also some different options that we've got available that we can deploy within a Huddle space and what those pros and cons are. Then we're going to wrap up with some comparisons between Huddle and some of those other solutions, and then have some time for some Q&A at the end. So with COLLABOS, so the following features are actually in our public beta. And just so everyone's, if they're not aware, recently we had a change within Sync where you can actually enroll your devices to be in a public beta. We have a feature called update channels. And what that means is that you can, excuse me, what you can do is actually choose that if I want to have the devices in a test bench, I can actually put them in a public beta. So I can test out those new features that are coming up and see what's going to be coming in without having to have a contact at Logitech or deal with our support team or something like that as we had to previously. So good news is COLLABOS 1.9 is going to be due to release this week. So we were hoping it was going to be last week, but there was a couple of little bugs we just wanted to squash and get the things all smoothed out. So these features will be available to you very shortly. So we can see here what's going to be coming for Rally Bar and Rally Bar Mini. So there's been a fix for Teams rooms on Android where the Teams crashed crashed when it was in front row mode using a dual display setup. Another fix for Teams rooms on Android where you can see the feedback dialog appears on the main display instead of the tap. So that's annoying little quirks, I guess, there that we'll see will be a nice little quality of life improvement. Microsoft Teams rooms on Android, we fixed an issue where certain devices coming out of office hours would show a purple Logitech screen. So office hours, for those not aware, is when you can set your devices to go into an eco mode or a standby mode outside of your office hours or your business hours. So I could set it, say, at 6 p.m. until 6 a.m. I want my displays to go completely dark. Fix an issue where the mute state on the UI do not always match the mute state on the device's microphone, pretty straightforward. And then a couple of fixes for Zoom Rooms Appliance. We fixed an issue where in certain network conditions, the active speaker tile would show green pixelated artifacts. And then we fixed an issue where in Zoom Rooms where devices are waking up from sleep mode, even though the on-device settings, the AI viewfinder settings were disabled. Some new features. So the more exciting stuff rather than bug fixes is camera zone. So this has been a long asked for feature that's been for Rally Bar and Rally Bar Mini. I've got a slide a little bit later that I can show you what that actually looks like. But essentially what that does is it means that if I'm in a room that had, say, think of like a fishbowl with glass walls and there was a corridor behind me, I can actually say that I don't want those areas to be detected for the right side service. So that would mean that, you know, if there are people congregating out for the next meeting, I could say that I don't want to say past 3 or 4 meters back in the room, that I don't need to detect people. Also really handy if you've got any artwork or portraits of people or something that the right site system might say, hey, this is a person in the background, we can actually exclude those areas as well. Obviously, like Logitech site support will be included in Rally Bar and Rally Bar Mini. We are getting very close to having site available, which is very exciting. We've also enhanced the BYOD experience in Zoom Rooms. So it'll actually then report to not only the scheduler outside of the room, but the tap IP on the table as well will not go into an offline state, which was an annoying little bug. Not a bug, I guess more of a limitation of what Zoom Rooms would do when you were switched over to BYOD mode. Some improvements to right site too. So our speaker view is no longer in beta. So it has been for a long time. And I think we've just been refining that feature. The cool thing now is I think we've got it to a point where we're very happy with the performance of it, that it doesn't need to have a beta tag associated anymore. There still will be further refinements, just like all of our features. But I think that's just been one of those things that's been a long time coming. You can see there we've had our Teams Room on Android app and Zoom Rooms app updated to the latest versions, and then also custom host names using NetBIOS 15 character limit. We can actually configure using on-device settings or under local network access. Roommates fixed some similar issues that we're going to see here that we're having with our Rally Bar and Rally Bar Mini, so I won't go over those again. You're going to see a lot of similarities there because those devices use the exact same chipset. So Roommate is essentially a standalone compute from what we're going to have in Rally Bar and Rally Bar Mini. Scheduled reboots now available in Sync. So this is also applicable to Rally Bar and Rally Bar Mini. So what that means is that I can say that, daily, weekly, on outside of business hours, I just want to reboot my COLLABOS device as well, which is another often asked for feature. And again, everything you can see there is very similar to what we're getting with our Rally Bar and Rally Bar Mini. The only other difference there is you can see that app space support, the app version has been updated to 2.5.7. Some might ask, what would I use app space on a roommate for? That's actually for a signage endpoint. So you can put one of these behind you to display in a common area and use that to push digital signage content. Some Tap IP and Tap Scheduler fix an issue where sorry, that's not applicable to that one there. That was just a bit of a copy and paste error. So we can see schedule reboots apply as well to Tap IP and Tap Scheduler, and same with the Teams Room on Android and Zoom Room Appliance app versions being updated there. Sync updates. So the main things that we're seeing here in our sync update, Flex Desk and the inclusion for LogiDock Flex. So that's a new category that we have available within the sync portal. So we do have our meeting rooms, personal workspace, and now Flex Desk as well as the 3 categories where we can do video conferencing from. The other one that I just touched on as well is our scheduled reboot. So I can do that off my entire fleet, off a single device. I can say that I want to reboot that remotely from the sync portal now. So a really nice quality of life improvement there. Very high level, I'm just going to talk for a couple of slides on LogiDock Flex. It's not what we're talking about today, but obviously it was a new product announced alongside Rally Bar HUDDLE. So we're going to do probably another deep dive on LogiDock Flex when it's available a little bit later this year. But for those not aware, it's an on-desk associated tablet with a PC that's for room booking, for desk booking, sorry, and does run supported versions of Logitech's desk booking platform, Teams, and also Zoom. The back of the device, as you can see here, we've got a host of ports, and one of the main differences we'll see, I guess, compared to LogiDock, first off, it doesn't have a speakerphone on it because it's designed for open areas and flex spaces, and it also has this cable retention here. So you can see, and I will just change to my laser pointer. You can see here we've got this cable retention here, which means I can put a cover on the top of this here, and all the connected peripherals and all my cabling can all be secured down so they won't get disconnected. So just like we do with our Rally Bar Mini, and all the other devices with that sort of really thoughtful cable retention, that's transferring across over to our LogiDock Flex as well. Okay, so talking about huddle space. So Rally Bar Huddle, the reason I hope that most people are here. So it's really been when you look at our Rally family now, I think this was often a thing that was probably a bit of a gap that we had, and we previously could say, hey, you compare a meetup and a roommate, but if you wanted to have some of those advanced AI features in the way of the audio processing and video processing, there was only so much that we could do with a meetup and a roommate versus an all-in-one device and appliance, which is where we found the need to have Rally Bar Huddle. So now where we used to say that we had sort of small, medium, and large, we've got a huddle/small space with Rally Bar Huddle, small to medium with a Rally Bar Mini, medium to large with Rally Bar, and then we'd say large to extra large with our Rally Plus system. Cool thing to keep in mind here, just as we can do with our Rally Bar or Rally Bar Mini, it is a very flexible device. So we can use it just completely PC based with a tap and a compute in what we'd consider to be USB mode. Also, it just comes packaged and available as an appliance. So just again, as we would with a Rally Bar or Rally Bar Mini, I can use that as my computing endpoint for my video conferencing system, and then pair that with a tap as well for a front of room controller. And third, it's also available as a pure BYOD device. So just like we can do with our other bars, we can set our service provider to be in BYOD mode, and then we can make use of things like HDMI CEC control. We can put our own signage and quick start guide and things like that on there. So it gives it some good quality of life over, say, just using a meetup as a pure USB device. The other new design product, and obviously when we're talking Techie, is mounts, right? So we've got this included in the mount, this newly designed multi-mount. So it's actually designed to be able to use on the table, mounted on the wall, or sat above the display. So we can see here from the structure of it here, for those that might have used our some of our webcams, like our BRIO 505, which I'm using now, you might see some similarities here, and think of it as a more industrial scaled up version of that there. So we've actually got a lip here that we can use as a backing point to sit on the bottom of a display, and we've got a back plate here that's to angle our rally bar huddle to the appropriate angle if we have got it mounted above our display. So as you can see here, this is what rally bar huddle looks like if it is just sitting on a table or a credenza, essentially folded up and used on its base there. I would say this is probably an uncommon deployment scenario for a couple of reasons. It doesn't secure the device in any way. And it's you know, a lot of meeting rooms now tend to not have joinery or cabinetry at the front of the room. Our TV mount for our multi-mount here, as you can see here, what we actually use is some adhesive strips, and then it actually slots and attaches in and becomes quite secure. So it's not just sitting there under its own weight. You could do that, but not recommended. And what that means then is it essentially acts as a scaled up webcam, if you like, sitting above your display. And then I think the coolest bit about our multi-mount is the fact that it can be wall mounted. So what you can actually do is you take those two screws off the base here, flip the mount over, and then it can be fixed in the wall. And what that would mean then is it actually covers up all your screw points and then looks quite clean and neatly installed, as you can see here. So just to recap what our installation options are here, we've got our table mount, wall mount, and then above TV mount as well. The other thing just to note here is that Rally Bar Huddle uses a standard 3/8 thread screw. So if you did want to use it, say on a tripod or an external mount, you can do that as well. And it's also compatible with the same TV and wall mounts that we use for our Rally Bar Mini and Rally Bar as well. It's got the same screws in the same position there. So if you did have a preference that you wanted to use our TV mount or the Rally Bar wall mount, you can do that as well. But just keeping in mind, I think one of the really cool things here is that we do have that multi-mount included in the box. From a secure install point, as you can see here, just as we do with all of our other devices, one of the big differentiators now, I think, of something, say, like a MEETUP or a lot of other products on the market is our cable retention here. So you can see everything all nice and cleanly ran through there behind the display. And then once we put our back cover on, it means that people can't easily disconnect power, HDMI, USB, data, and things like that. That might then result in the room going offline or having to have a call out to have a look to address any faults. Another cool thing we have here is this privacy shutter built in. So, that we have, we'll try that again. We have this privacy shutter built in. Sorry, the wonky animation there. There we go. We have this privacy shutter built in. So it's the first of our product to have that privacy shutter included in the device, which gives you a nice little visual indicator that whether the camera is in use or not. We've got these magnetic covers that came with our Rally Bar Mini, but I can guarantee probably 99% of them have been lost or were disposed of shortly after the deployment there. So cool to see that there. It's a nice clear indicator as to whether the camera is on or off, and also being white can match that our multi covers as well. So I'm sorry, I've just skipped past a slide there. So the other cool thing as well is that the camera uses an EPTZ. So it's our first bar that actually doesn't have a mechanical pan and tilt, and also the reason that it only has as a single lens. So previously, because we had a mechanical lens on our Rally Bar and Rally Bar Mini, because we're designed for huddle spaces and just small type spaces here, we don't actually have to have two cameras anymore. We can achieve everything digitally that we did previously for larger spaces with Rally Bar Mini and Rally Bar with this EPTZ camera and 120-degree field of view. So some of the features that we have available to us, we do have our group view, just as we would with our other bars. We can also do grid view. So grid view will be coming shortly after launch of the product by a firmware update. And as you can see here, because we're doing things digitally, we're not relying on two cameras, we can do some cool stuff here where we've got grid view of the attendees and then a reference of a room view as well, all off a single lens. Camera zone as well. So this is actually coming to all of our bars, and this is a little example of what that interface looks like. So you can see here in the example, we can set the width of the room or from a center line, how many meters I want either side, and also the depth as to how far back within the room there. And you can see the AI here is actually picking up, these are the people that I am rejecting in the room, and these are the people within that sort of that distance and the depth in that meeting space that I do want to pick up. So that can be all configured via locally on the device or via the Sync app as well. Another really cool feature as well is the speaker system. So the speakers and mic array have all been completely rebuilt. So because this is not a direct replacement for Meetup, it's our appliance solution for small meeting room spaces. We've taken from feedback on it, and I know I put my hand up, I've definitely seen Meetups deployed in really large spaces, much larger than they were designed for. So with that in mind, we've actually made the Meetup much louder. So the Rally Bar Huddle much louder, so it's twice as loud as our Meetup product. It also features the same 6 mic array with AI noise suppression that we actually have in our Rally Bar Mini as well. So from an audio performance perspective, you're going to see much better audio performance, much more adaptable to different environments than you would for something like our Meetup. A little note on this one here, one of the differentiators with Rally Bar Huddle versus say Rally Bar Mini or Rally Bar is we do not have provision for expansion microphones. So really by design, we are thinking this is for small spaces. The image that you can see here is probably the ideal type of space where we would see Rally Bar Huddle being used for. So if you are in a space where you'd say, hey, it'd be great if I could have an expansion mic pod on the table, it's probably not the right space for Rally Bar Huddle. Likewise, as in appliance mode, it is a single display device only. So that means it only has one HDMI output. Again, it doesn't really make sense to have necessarily 2 displays connected in a huddle space. So we've sort of by design really limiting it to your smallest of spaces. So it is going to perform ideally and not be sort of stretched beyond its limits in a larger space. Something wonky's happened there. Apologies. I do have some. There we go. So it is simple with device management as well, which means that just like all of our other devices, it can be managed within our Sync platform as well. I think a really cool story is really how far Sync has come just over even the last 12 months there, just the features that we're constantly adding in there. And it's not only about the hardware here. When you think about the ecosystem of the amount of products that Logitech has to offer within the meeting room and how simple they are to manage and deploy within the Sync portal, and features are just being added all the time. As I said just before, schedule reboots, camera zones, our local network access feature as well. All those things are really cool features that are being added in with every release of Sync. And I am going to stop sharing for a moment because I'm going to fix this before it. So if you just bear with me one moment. Jin, while I'm talking here, have you found? Has there been interest in Rally Bar Huddle? What are you sort of finding in the way of people's interest for huddle spaces? Yeah. What do you see traditionally? I guess that people are deploying.
Yeah, they can't get to wait for their to get their hands on it. Yeah, that's how hot it is right now. Yeah, and I guess it's really a good product because it's a gap that we're trying to cover for the longest time, right? Yeah. And it's very cost effective, right? Previously,
I think that's exactly it, right? I think it's been Rally Bar Mini obviously works in these type of spaces, but at a price point to scale, I think that's been a much needed product that we've had somewhere to fit.
Yep, that's right. I guess it's better to become a familiar product. People are familiar with Rally Bar Mini, and makes sense to have the harder spaces for that. Yeah, with COLLABOS in, you don't really need to have an additional compute, and that makes it a very beautiful product. Yep, and then I guess sustainability, it is also the first product in the VC portfolio that is 42% using renewable plastics, right? So I think
I think that's another really good point as well, that we are seeing more and more of a requirement of. Both Site and our Rally Bar Huddle are our first two products that do use post-consumer recycled plastics and low carbon aluminium in their framing there. So that sustainability piece is something that Logitech is heavily invested in, and it's not something we're just doing pure carbon offsetting. It's really from a factory level right through to by the time it gets into the hands of an end user.
Yep.
All right, I think we're back on. I'm just going to go share my deck again. I had, for some reason, some transitions at 0.25 seconds were copied across. Okay, so obviously, as I was touching on there, that we do have support for Logitech Sync. A cool thing to note here is that, and I will touch on that, some slight differentiators of how you would be onboarding a Rally Bar Huddle versus, say, something like a Rally Bar Mini. Some different wiring options that you can see here. You can see in our Rally Bar Huddle, our appliance wiring probably looks pretty similar to some people who have deployed our other bars as well. We have tap IP and power data, and then HDMI to the display. One thing to note here that on launch, we will be supporting tap IP only for Rally Bar Huddle. Tap with Cat5e kit is in development and will be available at a later date. In PC-based wiring, again, as you would see here, we've got our we have our compute, be that our MTR or Zoom Room or Google Meet solution. There, that would be essentially the brains of the operation. And in this mode here, we're actually just using our Rally Bar Huddle as a peripheral connected via USB-C. And BYOD wiring, as you can see here, again, we're making use of our HDMI input and our HDMI output to the display. A cool note as well here is, being a newer product, the Rally Bar Huddle is actually our first device to support 4K HDMI inputs and outputs. So if we've got a nice big commercial 4K display, as most commercial displays are nowadays, that actually means that the HDMI input can pass through a full 4K signal, so you can make use of that resolution as well. Obviously, when your VC service provider and your platform, that's obviously dependent and will generally scale on network. But I think the main use case there, the really cool thing there is making use for just local presentation of high resolution displays. So on that as well, what's in the box? So we can see here that we've got our Rally Bar Huddle is included, our multi-mat and display holster, as I mentioned, a HDMI cable, USB-C cable, and a power supply, and then some wall anchor screws. For those that might be familiar with Rally Bar or Rally Bar Mini, you'll probably notice there's a couple of things that aren't in the box. One of them is remote control. So we no longer include a remote control in the box, and the user guide documentation as well. We're not including that. There is actually just a QR code on the box if you do need to have a reference of that documentation. So how do we get around, I guess, that provisioning device if we don't have a remote control? We actually have local network access enabled by default on the device. So that's a differentiator from what we've done with Rally Bar Mini and Rally Bar previously, where you would have to do a button command to actually turn local network access on. By now having it on by default, once it's on your network, if you've got your IP address of the device, if you've assigned that via IP reservation or know it by just DHCP and the MAC address, I can actually log in via a web browser to the device, log in under the admin account using the default password, which is the last 5 digits of the serial number, and then I can provision my device remotely as well. Again, I guess the reason for this here is mostly around the sustainability piece. Generally, what we're finding is there's more preference to have our devices deployed in a room system. Once you've got a tap in the table there, then you really don't need the remote control, and it often just becomes something that's either stashed in a drawer or, worst case, becomes landfill. Likewise, as well with paper, I can attest that most of the time the data sheets and the documentation I get whenever in my kits, they end up going into recycling as well there. So rather than worrying about having to recycle them, I think it's easier just not to produce that documentation and have that available via QR code. And I think most people are probably used to using QR codes nowadays. So as you can see here, this is again, just to reiterate there. So we can use our relay with tap IP if you're using COLLABOS 1.9 and above, so that means that we can do Bluetooth pairing if we do have a tap IP and then provision the device. We can use that local network access via our browser, as I just spoke about. And third, the other option as well is we do have an interactive display, then we can actually use that as our interface to manage the device as well. So 3 options as well there. And as I said, just to reiterate, I think that we found that the remote control is probably not necessary when we have all these options available to us instead. So some deployment options when we're talking about the huddle space. So obviously we've been focused on Rallybar Huddle, but what other products do we have that have been available that we could have used in a huddle space as well? So one of them is a LOGI dock and a BRIO. So this is probably your most cost-effective option. And I think the big benefit here is that it offers improved meeting controls over just a pure BYOD system. So say if I just had a meetup that I was just plugging into my room, instead what I could do is have a BRIO or a BRIO 505. And then I actually get the cool meeting controls that I've got here. So I can do my video mute, I can do my volume control, I've got one touch to answer a call, and then I can do mic mute as well, all while having that status indicator on the bottom of the bar of the dock as well. So I can actually have a nice clear visual indicator of what's going on within my meeting, whether I'm muted or my camera is on or off. It is more cost effective than deploying a Meetup standalone. So this is one of the things I think especially with we're seeing more and more of these sort of sub huddle spaces there where you have like a maximum of 3 people. A lot of people might just go, hey, I'll just chuck a meetup in there. When you think about it now, what we can actually provide with for less money for those sort of 2 to 3 people, we can comfortably have, say, a BRIO 505 and a LOGI dock. We'll do a really good job for those really sort of phone booth, focus room, huddle spaces. One of the other cool things is we're using the Tune application on our laptop. We can actually do auto framing as well. So think of it as right sight light via software. It means that if I'm here and I've decided to sit way back here, I can actually use my BRIO 505 to then zoom in and frame in on me as the person speaking within the room. We also have show mode support. So this is something that's probably not a lot of people aren't aware of. So if you are using a BRIO 505, what I can actually do is I can tilt down my webcam and I can see if I can do it here. What will actually happen there, it will actually tilt, reorientate the webcam, and then we'll sort of frame in on any documents and things that I have there. So that's another really cool feature that we can have over here that we're just not going to get with a meetup as well, right? It provides laptop charging as well. So because we've got our dock in play here, we can do 100 watts of power delivery, a nice single cable solution that provides access to output to the display, access to the peripherals, and also charging my device. So in a lot of these BYOD spaces, I think a lot of organizations are still preferencing anyway to, even if they did have a meetup, is to also put a dock in front. It means that now you've got a dock, speakerphone, and webcam in a nice, small, cost-effective form factor. Some things that would be considerations that I would say, they're not necessarily negatives, but you go, well, this sounds great. I'm just going to put one of these in here instead of Rallybar Huddle in my spaces. Some things to note here is it's really only suitable for extra small spaces. So I'd say up to 3 people max. When you're talking a webcam and a speakerphone, although we have our nice little 6 mic array sitting on top of our LOGI dock, it isn't designed for, to be stuck in a meeting room with up to 6 people or something like that. Another thing is it's not a manageable endpoint. So in this config, so because we're using this as a BYOD system, we don't have a permanently connected PC to the device, which means that I can't push firmware updates to it. I can't see the status of it. I can't see if the webcam's been taken from it. Cables as well, leading to that, cables can be disconnected by users because this docking station just has our ports available on the back there. If someone did want to, they could disconnect HDMI. And unfortunately, when we go back to our other point there, we don't have any visibility over that as well. It does require an additional hardware to secure the device, so it does have a Kensington lock slot. And then finally, it is separate componentry as well there. So from ease of deployment, simplicity, obviously having an all-in-one device makes a lot of sense. And it just means that you've got a nice, one less piece to go missing if you think of it that way. So previously, before we had Rallybar Huddle, our deployment option, our preferred deployment option was to use a roommate, meetup, and tap IP. So this is kind of a next step up, I think, of here. So obviously the main thing here is that we're using a full room solution with that one touch join feature. So we've got, say, a Teams room on Android system here. We can have a nice manageable endpoint that I can see in TAC or what my service provider is. It can be purchased as a single factory box bundle at a reduced cost. So we actually provide that as a single box that you can order as a line item there, and that includes MEETUP, Roommate, and Tap IP, which again means that, you know, you're not like, hey, have I got all the right components for my system? Am I sure that everything's going to work together? This is a nice certified solution for Teams, Zoom, and other providers as well. It is fully manageable in sync. So just as we couldn't do that previously with our LOGI dock and BRIO, this is, I can push firmware updates to it. I can change settings on the device. I can see if everything's healthy and reporting online, just as I would with any other room system. We have HDMI ingest support. So that's obviously a big differentiator then there. If I want to, I don't have to use my laptop as the endpoint to drive the meeting. If I just want to be able to take notes on that and I'm just an attendee in here, I can then free up my laptop. I don't have to be the one worried about that if I'm accidentally sharing my screen or something like that. I've got a very clear indicator of whether I've plugged in or not, whether I'm going to be sharing my my device within a call. Another really cool feature here is that Tap Scheduler can be added to the room at no additional cost, really. So that's another sort of often forgot or not thought about feature here. So people don't necessarily think about, do I want to have room booking? But when you can see that essentially, if you've already got a room system and a resource account, then all you need to have is the cost of the hardware on that side of the room that ties into that ecosystem and ties into that room account, and with no additional cost. That's not to say that if you had a LOGI dock and a BRIO in a huddle space that you wouldn't be able to have a Tap Scheduler. It's just that you would then have to apply a license usually associated with it there. So that could be, say, like a team shared device license, for instance, at a reduced cost of what a full resource account would be, but still an additional cost. Some things to consider that you're maybe going to be missing out on here is that with a meetup, we only have right site one support. So right site one is our group framing only. It means we're not going to get active speaker view. We're not going to get grid view. There is those things to consider. Our meetup firmware updates are mandatory with COLLABOS. So the difference here is that if I had a Teams on Windows system, for instance, that whenever I get a COLLABOS update, it actually has the meetup firmware update, if available, included in that, and then we'll update on connection. Differentiator here is that obviously, you know, if you do have a full room system of Windows or a Rally Bar Huddle, because it's an all-in-one device, I don't have to worry about, do I know if this is going to work with this? You know, those kind of things there. It just means that I've got a little bit more control if I went to a full-fledged all-in-one system. We also have minimal audio and video configuration options. So what I mean by that is things like AI noise suppression, reverb control, speaker EQ, microphone EQ, and also those advanced camera framing features as well. At the end of the day, Meetup's been out in the market for quite a while. It's an awesome little product. There's heaps and heaps of them out in the market everywhere. But it has been out in the market for a while. So it means there's only so much that we can really do with that device connected as a USB peripheral. And finally, the thing to note there is that, again, is separate componentry. So while we do have the ability to secure most of these devices, you know, there's just more points of failure there than we do have from an all-in-one device. So finally, I guess when we're saying what's the best case scenario for a huddle space, and obviously I'm going to say that it's Rally Bar Huddle and Tap IP. That's what we're here to talk about. So it is, again, is a full room system with one touch join. It can be purchased just like we could with our previous kits as a single factory box bundle with Rally Bar Huddle and Tap IP. It has full right side support. So that means group framing, speaker view, and grid view. And personally, I think grid view is kind of that big game changer as well, right? Is that the fact that we, for those huddle spaces, especially where people aren't going to be sitting in front of each other too much or anything like that there, the fact that we can then frame people up and get a nice focused in grid view of each of the participants really improves what we talk about as meeting room equity, right? Where it sort of blurs those lines between, like, is there a disadvantage or an advantage to being at my desk versus being in a meeting room? It is fully manageable in sync. So all of these devices, including say Tap IP and my Rally Bar Huddle, they're all visible, manageable within sync. So that means all the device settings, everything as well, the advantages we'd have over a BYOD system. The other cool thing as well here is if you didn't want to use Rally Bar Huddle as a room system and wanted to use it in BYOD mode, we can still manage that endpoint because we can put it on the network. It's still reliant then on someone to come and plug in their laptop, but because it is a network device, I can still push my firmware updates to it. I can still see the health of it. So again, that's another big advantage over, say, just going with a LOGI dock and a BRIO 505. We do have our HDMI ingest support. And again, as we had with our Meetup and Roommate, we do have the ability to add tap schedule without any associated additional room costs if we are using it as part of a room system. And it is an all-in-one device with cable retention on all of the devices. So if we did jump back thinking about Meetup, obviously with Roommate, we've got cable retention built into there if we're using a PC mount. Our Tap, if we're mounting that, again has cable retention or that plate underneath. But the Meetup itself, again, being an older product, it doesn't have secured USB or power. So that means if someone wanted to come and poke around the back of it, they could unplug the power, they could unplug the USB, and then cause that room to go offline. And as I touched on before, it does support 4K input and output as well. So a nice little differentiator there for local presentation. You can make use of your really nice big high resolution displays. One more just to finish there. The multi-mount was included in the box as well. So thinking of even for like a Meetup there, if you want to use a TV mount, that was an optional accessory as well. And then you're really limited on mounting hardware if you were comparing that against your BRIO and a LOGI dock. So if we're going to summarize things where we are here, I think the worst thing we can do is have our huddle space look like that image at the top of the space here where we've done nothing. I don't know about you, but if I'm in an office and I'm going to go have a meeting, a display probably isn't going to cut it anymore, especially nowadays. Most of the time I'm going to be on a Teams call. I'm going to be on a video call of some sort. And if I go in there and all there is a TV on the wall, I'm going to have to plug my laptop in. I'm going to have to use my webcam. I'm going to have to use integrated speakers and microphone. And it's not a great experience if I've got a few people around there. But there's no real bad option of anything here. So I think we can look at these as good, better, and best. Obviously doing something's better than doing nothing here. And it's really about making a decision in what's right for your organization. And there's nothing to say you couldn't have a mix of these, right? If you said, hey, I've got some focus rooms that are just little 3-person rooms that I just want to use for a quick 15-minute meeting for ad hoc, then, this makes a lot of sense. Likewise, if you want the latest and greatest features, then a Rally Bar Huddle makes sense. Then you've got this option right in the middle here of using a Meetup and a Roommate where you get the advantages of a managed endpoint within sync and also a nice, really cost-effective option. So with that, Jin, how's our Q&A going?
No questions. No
questions.
Yeah.
I'll assume that that's all good then. Sorry, there was obviously a couple of technical hitches with the slide deck there. I was actually doing some editing this morning on a flight, so obviously did some copy and paste by error there with some transitions. So, does anyone have any questions? Is there anything that anyone would like to know about that I haven't covered off today?
Yeah, there was one comment saying, "What you just did is clear as mud."
The what is?
Now, if any one of you wants to take the question live, just let me know. Raise your hand, and we will patch you in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I see someone's hands raised.
Stuart.
Hello.
Hey, Stuart.
Hello. Sorry if this has already been asked, but what is the timeline for the CAT tap to be an option with this solution?
I don't have a confirmed timeline at the moment, but it would be this year, I'd say, that we're seeing it. So we're going to have Rally Bar Huddle available in July on shelf, and I think we'd be sort of seeing it shortly after there. So the only thing I would say is a good little thing to keep note on of your own. If you do have a sync tenant and a sync portal available, maybe just even having that a system or a room enrolled in beta, and then you can sort of see when those features are going to be coming out there. So we don't anticipate that it's going to be months and months and months. It will be in sort of in the near future after launch.
I've just had an internal guy, my internal guy asked me to ask if that's going to be a software update.
It will, yes, it will. So that will just be a firmware update that will come out, a COLLABOS that will have support for it there. Yeah.
A bit of a side question too, but potentially associated with this. Do you have any supported, or are you planning to bring out any supported longer USB to USB-C to USB-A cables for customers who don't necessarily want to use the sync? Sorry, the switch. Sorry,
yeah.
the switch. Sorry.
Yeah.
Look, I would say that there's at the moment some differentiators there. Is if you are using your system in appliance mode, we can do BYOD switching if you connect HDMI and USB on the device.
Yeah.
And that actually negates the need for switch. You can then use some third-party CAD extenders to get there. And
so,
then you can
so that's what I'm driving at. Do you have a list of supported, or are there any list of preferred?
No. So I mean, from an extender set, I would say that it's from a Logitech side, we don't. From say like a company say like Icron, Icron will tell you that they've tested and they will support if their solution and their extender set is connected with a rally bar, say for instance there. So from Logitech's position, and I'll toe a company line here 100%, is that the only solution that we support is either switch or a strong cable as a form of extension. But obviously in AV integration, I think part of that is bringing sort of different solutions together. And that being said, the support that you would get would be from the extender manufacturer if they've said on their website they've tested and validated that our products work with their solutions.
Okay, good. Thank you for your comment.
No worries.
Now, there's also another question asking about how easy it is to switch between Zoom and Teams. I presume you are referring to the HUDDLE, right? So the way you switch it, you have to probably do a factory reset. You know, for the case of Microsoft Teams, you have to do a factory reset before you switch to Zoom. But of course, for the other way around, if it's Zoom to Teams, it's just a matter of selecting it, the service provider before resetting it.
Yeah, and that is a requirement, I think, just to note there is that we do have a change service provider option, but a certification requirement from Microsoft, if you did want to change providers, does require a full factory default there. So obviously, it is a multi-platform device. All of our appliances are, but if keeping in mind that it's not designed for you to have a 11 a.m. Zoom meeting, and then I'm going to quickly switch it to a Teams meeting at 12 o'clock. We do have all those providers have got pretty much improved direct guest join. Still obviously not one-to-one as a native room system, but then a fallback then I would say is BYOD there. If you're talking Windows, much harder. Okay, well, thanks everyone. If no more questions, then I'll give everyone their 15, 16 minutes back. Thank you very much. And as I said, we'll probably on the next one of these, we'll be potentially diving into Logidoc Flex and Flex booking and things like that there. So thanks everyone for joining, and have a good day.
Sorry, there's one more question. Sorry.
Oh, there is. Sorry.
Yeah, it says, do you have a demo program? Not too sure what is this demo program they're referring to. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very open question. I would say that if you're a channel reseller, then there are programs where we do have for resellers to procure Logitech systems.
Yeah.
From an end user, then please reach out if you are interested in having a look at and evaluating some hardware, and we'd love to know some more details. Okay, no more bets. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a good day, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you.